Hi, my name is Jacelyn Winkler. My sign name is Jacelyn. And before I begin, I want to let you know that this video will be captioned for deaf and hard of hearing people to have equal access to what is said in this video. I want to discuss and talk to you today about a few different things. First is what my role as the itinerant teacher of the deaf will look like in your classroom. Second is what it is like to have a deaf or hard of hearing student in your classroom, how to handle that situation, and how to prepare for the experience of having a deaf or hard of hearing student in your classroom. If I am ever not available to you for immediate assistance, you can always send me a text or an email with your concerns or questions. Unlike having a co-teacher in your classroom with you at all times, as an itinerant teacher, I will either be coming into your classroom to assist a student, or I will be pulling a student out of your classroom. If I'm coming into your class, I will mostly be there just for assistance. I will aid you with suggestions, tips, tricks, and things like that for the student who is deaf or hard of hearing. If I'm pulling a student out of your class, it could be 1 day a week, 2 days a week, or whatever the IEP committee and team has decided is best for that student. Every student is different with their needs, and that's how we will meet them. One thing that is important to know about a deaf or hard of hearing student is that in most cases, they can actually hear. Some people think that being labeled deaf or hard of hearing means that they have no access to sound at all. The ranges for hearing loss go from mild to moderate to severe and even profound. The range of a student's hearing loss is determined by an audiologist or their ENT office. Each student that is deaf or hard of hearing will have an audiogram that describes their hearing loss, and I would be happy to sit down with you one-on-one and go into detail about what their hearing loss consists of. In some cases, students may wear hearing aids or have cochlear implants to help them hear. One thing some people assume about hearing aids is that you have to talk louder or raise your voice in order for them to hear you. This is not true. The hearing aids are there to help the student hear, so you don't have to amplify your voice so that they can hear you. If the student has an interpreter present, you as the teacher want to be sure that you are speaking directly to the student and not directly to the interpreter. It is considered disrespectful to talk directly to an interpreter instead of directing your conversation at the deaf or hard of hearing person. Just like hearing people, the deaf and hard of hearing want to make that eye contact and want to know that they have your attention and you have their attention. There are 3 types of hearing equipment that you may see with a deaf or hard of hearing student. The first is a hearing aid. Hearing aids are worn to amplify the sound and not necessarily clear up the sound. These are worn to increase the student's chances of access to speech and the speech spectrum. The second type of hearing device that you may see with a deaf or hard of hearing student is a cochlear implant. Cochlear implants are implanted surgically, usually when there is no access to sound. These are a good choice for those who have sensory neural hearing loss that is severe to profound. There is a magnet involved, and if the magnet is turned off, then the cochlear implant will not work. For the cochlear implant to successfully work, you need to make sure that the magnet is turned on. The third type of hearing equipment that you may see with a deaf or hard of hearing student is a BAHA, or bone anchored hearing aid. A BAHA is also implanted surgically and is mostly used in students who do not have ears, therefore have no access to sound. A BAHA helps students hear sound by using vibrations. An FM system is something that you as the teacher may wear in order to increase the student's ability to hear. The FM system will connect to the student's hearing device, may that be a hearing aid, cochlear implant, or a BAHA. There is a component that the student will attach to their hearing equipment, and what that does is it cancels out any background noise so that the student may focus more on your voice. The best distance to be from a hearing device so that hearing may be at best is about 6 inches. Now, we know that you as the teacher cannot stand by one student and teach the entire time. This is where the FM system comes in handy. You can be across the room and the student is still getting access to your voice at a level that is correct for them. Seating for a deaf or hard of hearing student in the classroom is very important. Keep in mind that if you move around a lot as the teacher, the interpreter will be following you. If you go to the carpet for either a read aloud or a mini lesson, there are a few things you need to make sure that the deaf or hard of hearing student has access to. These things are a good visual of the read aloud or the board, whichever you are working from. He needs to be able to see the interpreter as well as see your face. If you are far away from the student and not using an FM system, keep in mind that they may have a hard time reading your lips if they practice lip reading. We want to make sure that the deaf or hard of hearing students are getting equal access to all of the learning and materials that the hearing children also do. One more thing to keep in mind when you are seating a deaf or hard of hearing student in your classroom is to try and stay away from seating them next to a door or a window or anything that could cause visual or auditory distractions. For example, if you have a student that is dependent on ASL, but they get distracted by something outside, then if they look away, they will miss a few minutes of your lecture, which could have been material that is super important and crucial for that student to know. Incorporating and implementing visual supports is something that is very helpful when working with deaf or hard of hearing students. These are very important to use because oftentimes the students need a visual in order to make a connection to a new word or concept, and they need that visual as a representation of that new concept or new word. One thing that is very important for a deaf or hard of hearing student is getting their attention and checking for understanding. Since these students often require extra time for processing information because they have to process the sound itself or the perception of sign. They may need a few extra minutes before being asked questions. After they are asked questions, they may need additional wait time in order to respond, think, and answer the question. I'm very excited to work with you as your itinerant teacher next year, and I want to say thank you for taking the time to watch this video and prepare for the experience you will have with a deaf or hard of hearing student in your classroom.